My name is Ryan Carter, and for most of my marriage, I believed patience could fix anything. My wife Nicole was fiery, unpredictable, and strangely charming because of it. I used to think her sharp tongue was just part of her personality, something she'd soften with time. But somewhere between the years of routine and responsibility, that charm turned into something colder, something that cut deeper than I knew how to admit. It started on a normal Thursday evening. I had come home early from work, something I rarely got to do. I thought it would be a nice surprise for her. Maybe we could have dinner together, maybe talk like we used to. But when I walked in, she didn't even look up from her phone. Her fingers kept scrolling like my presence was just background noise. "Hey," I said gently, dropping my keys on the counter. "Thought we could spend some time together. Maybe grab dinner out." She sighed loudly, still not looking at me. "Ryan, can you not start? I had a long day." I hesitated. "I'm just asking." That was when she snapped her head up with a look I hadn't seen before. Annoyed, irritated, almost disgusted. "You don't get to ask," she said sharply. "I don't owe you anything. You're not my dad or my owner." The words landed like a slap. Not because she was yelling, but because she said them with a flat, emotionless certainty, as if she had been waiting for the moment to finally let them out. I stood there stunned. I didn't know whether to be angry, hurt, or confused. "I'm not trying to own you, Nicole. I'm your husband. I'm just trying to spend time with you." She rolled her eyes. "You're being clingy. It's annoying." Clingy. We lived in the same house in Portland, Oregon, but barely spoke for days at a time. And she called me clingy for wanting a conversation. I tried again. "Did I do something? Because lately it feels like..." She interrupted harshly. "Stop acting like I'm obligated to entertain your feelings. I'm not responsible for your emotions." I wish I could say I said something smart or walked out with dignity, but I didn't. I just stood there absorbing the blow like I always did, trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as it felt. But it was bad. It was a turning point I didn't recognize yet. That night I slept on the couch, not because she told me to, but because the silence in our bedroom felt like sleeping beside a locked door. The next day I tried giving her space. I woke up early, made coffee, and left a cup for her on the counter with a small note. "Hope your day is better today." Something simple, something normal, something I had done many times before. When I got home after work, the cup was still there, untouched, cold. My note was ripped in half and thrown into the sink. I stared at it for a long time. Not because the gesture was huge, but because tearing it felt intentional, like a message. Later that evening she walked in, tossed her bag to the side, and grabbed a snack from the pantry. She didn't greet me. She didn't even glance in my direction. "Nicole," I said quietly, "can we talk?" She groaned dramatically. "Ryan, can you stop acting like you're some victim? I don't owe you explanations every time I breathe." I held my voice steady. "I'm not asking for control. I'm asking for basic communication." She shrugged. "Not my problem if you can't handle how I talk." "Nicole, we're married. We're supposed to." She cut me off again, harsher this time. "Don't guilt-trip me with the whole 'we're married' speech. You're not my father. You're not in charge of me. Stop trying to act like I answer to you." I felt something shift inside me. Then some quiet part of me that had tolerated, endured, and rationalized her behavior finally woke up. For the first time in a long time, I realized how little she thought of me, how little she valued my presence, my feelings, my effort. And once that realization settled, it didn't leave. It only grew. Everything changed the night I overheard her talking on the phone. Not just the words, those were bad enough, but the way she spoke about me like I was a burden she was forced to carry. And that was the moment I knew things wouldn't go back to normal, because normal had been hurting me for a long, long time. The following morning I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I wanted to sneak around or prove a point, but because I needed clarity. Sitting at the kitchen table, coffee steaming in front of me, I let myself really think. For years I had adjusted my life around Nicole, weekends, evenings, even small daily routines. I bent for her happiness. I reminded myself it was love, patience, and compromise. But compromise becomes dangerous when the other person sees it as weakness, when it's taken for granted, when respect is replaced with indifference. I remembered our first apartment together in Seattle, how she laughed at everything I did, how her eyes sparkled when I held her hand in public. I remember being proud of her at work, cheering for her successes, supporting her dreams. And now I realized how little of that she remembered, or maybe she never did. That morning I made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation. I couldn't keep living like a ghost in my own home. I couldn't continue bending hoping she'd change. It was time to reclaim my life. I called my friend Matt Harrison, the one person who had always been able to see things clearly. "Matt," I said quietly, "I think I'm done." He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. He just let the silence stretch. And I realized how powerful silence could be when it's shared with someone who understands. By that afternoon I packed a bag. Clothes, my laptop, chargers, my favorite books, all the small things that felt like pieces of myself. I didn't tell Nicole. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. I simply left quietly, calmly. When I arrived at Matt's place in Denver, he greeted me with a knowing look. "Finally?" he asked. "Finally," I replied. And for the first time in months my chest felt light-free. Not because I had walked away from someone I loved, but because I had stopped giving myself to someone who didn't want me. Over the next few days the messages started, not from her but from people around her. Her friends, her family, even some distant relatives. Curiosity, concern, and even judgment. "Why'd you leave her? She didn't deserve that. You overreacted." But none of it mattered. I had already realized that the only validation I needed was my own. The peace that comes with standing up for yourself, even when the world doubts you, is worth more than any apology or explanation. A week later Nicole texted short, clipped, cold. "We need to talk. Can you come home?" I didn't respond immediately. I stared at my phone, thinking of all the times I had bent over backward for her, trying to win back moments of affection, trying to keep her from drifting away. And then I thought of the last time I had truly felt seen, before silence and resentment had swallowed us whole. I typed back, "I'm not ready. We'll talk when I'm ready." That evening I sat on Matt's balcony, city lights stretching out endlessly below. I thought of the life I had before marriage, the dreams I had set aside, the small joys I had ignored, and I realized something important. Happiness isn't about holding on to someone who refuses to hold on to you. It's about finding yourself when everything else feels lost. Over the next month I started reclaiming routines, morning runs, reading books I had left unfinished, cooking meals I genuinely enjoyed. Every small act was a quiet rebellion against the life I had been living in someone else's shadow. And then came the day Nicole's lawyer called. Formal, procedural, cold, highly efficient. They spoke of finances, division of assets, living arrangements. I listened calmly. For once, I wasn't reacting out of fear or guilt. I had prepared for this, documented everything, and accepted that the marriage had ended the moment she refused to see me as an equal partner. The call ended and I felt no anger, no need for confrontation, just relief. Because for the first time in years, I remembered something I had forgotten. I deserved respect. I deserved appreciation. I deserved love that was freely given, not negotiated or demanded. A few weeks later I met someone new. Not for a rebound, not for validation, but because I finally had open space in my life for connection, for possibility. Sarah, with her soft laugh and steady gaze, reminded me that human connection doesn't need manipulation or entitlement. It thrives on mutual respect and care. And as I looked at her sipping coffee across the table, I thought of Nicole, not with anger, not with regret, but with clarity. I had loved her fully. I had tried. I had waited. I had bent over backward. But when love dies on one side, nothing remains but emptiness. Sometimes leaving is the only way to rediscover life. I texted Nicole one last time. "I hope you find what you're looking for. I know I found myself." No response. And that was perfect because this time I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking toward myself.